right, so North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may reportedly be traveling to Russia to sit down with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is according to a U.S. official who spoke with the Associated Press. It is unclear when or where this meeting will take place, but we do know the Kremlin is trying to acquire military equipment for its use in its war against Ukraine. The U.S. National Security Council spokeswoman says Russian defense minister traveled to Pyongyang recently to try and persuade North Korea to sell artillery ammunition to Russia. It's also being reported the two countries may hold joint war games. Let's bring in our panel now to discuss this potential meeting. Fred Fleitz, a senior fellow at America First Policy Institute, along with retired U.S. Army Colonel John Mills. He's the former director of cybersecurity policy at the Department of Defense and also author of The Nation Will Follow. And joining us today, retired U.S. military intelligence officer Steve Rogers. Welcome in, gentlemen. Great to have you. So obviously, when you hear that there will be some talks about arms, North Korea and Russia, that's one thing, but a potential face-to-face meeting is another. What do you make of the reports, the Kremlin sort of dismissing this? Do you think, Fred, first to you, that it will be happening and it's being planned?
I do, and I think there's multiple reports that Kim Jong-un is going to meet with Putin in Vladivostok. There's also reports he may make a second trip to Moscow. And it's just amazing, after 75 missile tests last year, 30 this year, North Korea is showing a picture of a tactical nuclear weapon in the spring. One would have thought that relations couldn't possibly get worse. But now we have this report, the report of joint naval exercises,
right,
and North Korea conducting a mock nuclear attack over the weekend with a fake warhead. This isn't just an adversary taking advantage of American weakness. This is national security malpractice by Joe Biden. He does not have a serious North Korea policy. This is the result. Exactly.
I mean, it's kind of like, where is our nation? Where is the leadership when we have all this happening? And the propaganda video you mentioned too there, Fred, some say we need to take that much more seriously. Colonel Mills, your take?
Yeah, thank you, Bianca. This is all about several numbers: 152, 122, and 762. Those are the rounds, the artillery rounds and the small arms rounds that Russia desperately needs. So they're looking for essentially defense industrial base support from North Korea, which makes a common lineage of weapons and ammunition. So they're really looking for the ammunition. But it begs the question also, are we potentially going to start seeing North Korean volunteers or North Korean units? I want to put anything past this. The Russians need help. The North Koreans need cash, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks.
Steve, what's your take? Because, you know, we're in the 19th month of the conflict here, and, you know, we're not talking about off-ramps. We're not talking about diplomacy now. We're talking about everything's pointing to the side of Russia getting another lifeline here.
Look, this is another catastrophe created by the Biden administration. I believe there will be a face-to-face meeting, and I keep an eye on China. Maybe some of those arms and ammunition and equipment going to Russia is coming from China via North Korea. I don't leave China out of this equation. It may get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and you know, we're talking about what is going on with China at the same time. A lot happening here outside of skipping the G20. We're learning that the FBI and Department of Defense reportedly have been tracked more than 100 incidents of Chinese nationals posing as tourists, breaching our U.S. military bases and other federal sites. They're using drones, they're using scuba divers. This according to the Wall Street Journal. You know, when we read this, Fred, we just look at this, how vulnerable some of our institutions are.
We just see how China is prepared to use asymmetric attacks, buying farmland near military bases, having agents disguised as tourists trying to sneak into these bases, even scuba diving nearby. China's going to stop at nothing to get the advantage to become the world's leading power. And I understand that some of these Chinese tourists actually did get on the bases. Sometimes they just blew past the front gate. Obviously, we have to address this.
And Colonel Mills, I mean, again, Biden sitting back. We have spy balloons, you know, floating over our country for days. You know, Fred just talked about the land being sold. There was a report that a Texas businessman is accused of selling over 130,000 acres of farmland to a Chinese billionaire, and yet there's no repercussions. There's no, you know, alarms here. It just is going on right in plain sight.
Yeah, to put this in proper context, so that the National Security Council can actually do something about this, these should be called advanced force operations. That's American term and doctrine and strategy, which the Chinese clearly have been reading and following. All these are activities you do in preparation for conflict. These are phase zero shaping activities. They go to Alaska, Fort Wainwright, that's where ballistic missile defense interceptors are at. They go to Key West. This is actually kind of an old story. Were they doing this in advance of ramping up their activities at the Lourdes spy base in Cuba? So they were at Key West probing the perimeter of Key West Naval Air Station. We were just down there in June. So all of the Laughlin Air Force Base, the purchase in Valverde County, right close to Laughlin Air Force Base, all of these things, the spy balloon. I've stopped counting at 25 advanced force operations by the Chinese. Now they're hacking into our telescopes in Hawaii and in Chile. Are they curious as to what we're looking at in space with these telescopes? Yeah, I think they are. These are, put in proper context, these are advanced force activities in preparation for conflict. So let's hope the National Security Council, led by Jake Sullivan, does something about it. Probably won't, but let's put it in proper context.
Step behind every step of the way, unfortunately, and we're expecting to hear from Jake Sullivan today at the briefing room. And I'm not sure exactly if it'll be about the Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin meeting or whatnot. But you just mentioned a few minutes ago, Steve, that you expect China to be part of all of this, and there really is. There's a new axis here, and the Biden administration, it just has failed every step of the way. And I think Americans aren't feeling that our leaders are really prepared as we continue to look at the ever-changing landscape here. So what is the solution here when you look at maybe the G20? Will something come out of that?
Well, I don't believe anything will come out of that. The real solution is to do what Ronald Reagan did years ago, peace through strength. You build up your military forces to a point that no one dare to challenge the United States of America any place on this planet. That's how the problem is solved. They know power. The Chinese Communist Party knows power. Russia knows power. Every enemy we have knows and understands power. We got to get back to becoming a very powerful nation.
I have about 20 seconds, but Fred, there are questions if Biden is compromised by China by some of the investigations that are happening with the House GOP and the money and the transfers. A lot of people are looking at what we're seeing. What's your take?
I think Americans are starting to wonder, what did the Chinese think they were buying with these millions of dollars that they were funneling to the Biden family through multiple front companies? What brilliant things did Biden's son and his relatives have to offer the Chinese government for all that money? It's hard to see how this couldn't be influence peddling.
Got to get to the answers. Got to get to the transparency there. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Fred Fleitz, Colonel Mills, Steve Rogers. Great conversation.